I am Linda, 63 years old, and recently widowed after 40 years of marriage to my beloved husband, John. When he passed away, my son Michael invited me to move in with him, his wife Stephanie, and my 2 grandchildren. At first, everything seemed perfect. I was welcomed with open arms, or so I thought. The warmth I felt initially began to cool far too quickly. I never imagined family could turn so cold. Before I tell you what happened that made me cancel that mortgage payment, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you have ever had to stand up for yourself against family. After John died from a sudden heart attack last year, my whole world fell apart. We had been together since college, building a life as high school teachers in the same district, raising our son Michael together, and planning a retirement that now would never happen. The day of the funeral remains a blur, but I remember Michael holding my hand tightly as they lowered the casket. "Mom, you should come stay with us," he said afterward, "at least until you figure things out." At 63, I found myself completely lost. Our modest house held too many memories, and being alone there felt unbearable. When Michael suggested I move in with his family, it seemed like the perfect solution. I had always been close with my son, and I adored my grandchildren, 8-year-old Aiden and 5-year-old Emma. "We have plenty of space," Michael assured me. "The guest room is basically just collecting dust anyway." His wife Stephanie nodded along, though now I realize her smile never quite reached her eyes. "The kids would love having you around more," she added. I sold most of our furniture, put some cherished items in storage, and moved into Michael and Stephanie's beautiful 2-story colonial in the suburbs. It was a gorgeous home that John and I had helped them purchase 5 years earlier. When they were struggling to qualify for a mortgage, we provided a substantial down payment, and I co-signed the loan. With my excellent credit score, I actually became the primary borrower, though at the time, it seemed like just a formality to help my son achieve his dream home. Those first few weeks were almost idyllic. I woke early each morning to prepare breakfast for everyone. Michael hugged me every day before leaving for his job as a software engineer. The children were thrilled to have me there, especially when I volunteered to take them to school and help with homework. "Grandma makes the best pancakes ever," Aiden announced, one morning chocolate smeared across his cheek. "And she never yells when I spill things," Emma added, giving me a sticky maple syrup hug. I tried to make myself useful without overstepping. I kept the house tidy, prepared dinner most evenings, and occasionally watched the children when Stephanie had her book club or yoga classes. My small teacher's pension and widow's benefits covered my personal expenses, and I continued making the monthly mortgage payments, as agreed, when we set up the loan. "Mom, these pot roast potatoes taste exactly like I remember from childhood," Michael said one Sunday evening as we all gathered around the table. The dining room glowed with soft light. Stephanie had arranged fresh flowers, and the children chattered happily about their upcoming school week. For a brief moment, I felt truly at home. Then, I caught Stephanie's expression as she watched me refill Michael's wine glass. Her smile seemed pinned in place, her eyes calculating. It was fleeting, but it sent a chill through me that I tried to dismiss. "This is delicious, Linda," she said, her voice pleasant enough. "Though maybe a bit more salt next time." I nodded and smiled back. Everything was fine. We were family. This arrangement would work for everyone. I had no idea how quickly things would change. By the second month of living with Michael and his family, I began noticing subtle shifts in the atmosphere. The most obvious changes came from Stephanie, whose initial politeness had developed an edge. Linda, I organized the spice cabinet yesterday, she said one morning as I was preparing French toast for the children. I'd appreciate if you kept things in alphabetical order instead of however you've been arranging them. I apologized immediately. Of course, I didn't realize there was a system. There is now, she replied with a tight smile. These small corrections became daily occurrences. My cooking was suddenly too heavy or too bland. The laundry I folded wasn't done to her specifications. The children's backpacks weren't organized properly when I helped with homework. One evening, I overheard her on the phone with someone, her voice low, but clear enough through the thin walls. She's everywhere all the time, Stephanie was saying. I turn around and bump into her in the kitchen. She rearranges things without asking. The kids are starting to go to her first when they need something. A pause. I know she's his mother, but this is my house. I felt a stab of hurt. I had been trying so hard not to impose. After that, I made myself even smaller in the house. I started spending more time in my room, coming out mainly to help with meals or when the children specifically asked for me. The following weekend, I rented a small storage unit and moved most of my remaining possessions there. I kept only essentials in my room, trying to minimize my presence in their home. Mom, you didn't have to do that, Michael said, when he noticed most of my things gone. He looked concerned, but distracted. Work had been demanding lately, and he was rarely home before the children's bedtime. I just thought it would be more comfortable for everyone, I explained, not wanting to create conflict. He gave me a quick side hug. Stephanie's just very particular about the house. She'll adjust. But she didn't adjust. If anything, her coldness increased as spring turned to summer. I continued paying the mortgage and frequently brought home groceries, trying to contribute financially without overstepping. When I tried talking to Michael again, he sighed heavily. Mom, can we not do this? Stephanie says, you're being sensitive. She's just adjusting to having another adult in the house. I nodded and dropped the subject. The bright spots in my days were the hours spent with Aiden and Emma. I treasured walking them to school, hearing about their days, helping with science projects, and reading bedtime stories. Then, Stephanie began limiting even those interactions. The children need to be more independent, she told me one afternoon when I offered to help Emma with her kindergarten homework. And you're making them too dependent on you. Later that week, she enrolled them in an expensive after-school program, eliminating our afternoon time together. It's better for their development, she explained when I expressed disappointment. 4 months into my stay, I began questioning whether I had made a terrible mistake moving in. I missed my old home, my routines, my independence. But where would I go? Most of our savings had gone toward helping Michael and Stephanie with their down payment and paying off John's medical bills. One Saturday afternoon, I was looking for a photo album to show the children pictures of their father as a boy. After searching several cabinets, I found John's framed photograph, the one I had placed on the living room bookshelf, buried in a drawer beneath some old magazines. It had been removed without a word to me. As I held the frame, my husband's smiling face looking back at me, I realized that this wasn't just Stephanie adjusting. She was systematically erasing my presence from their family life. 3 months turned into 4, and then 5. The chill from Stephanie had transformed into an Arctic frost. She began excluding me from family activities with increasing frequency. We're just going to visit my parents this Sunday, she told me casually on a Friday evening. It's going to be crowded with all my sisters there, so it's probably better if you stay here and have some quiet time. When I mentioned it to Michael later, he seemed surprised. Oh, did Mom not want to come? I thought you just wanted some alone time. This pattern repeated itself. There were suddenly family movie nights I wasn't informed about until they were already underway in the living room. Weekend trips to the beach where my invitation mysteriously got lost in communication. Birthday celebrations for Stephanie's relatives where I was conspicuously absent from photographs. The microaggressions grew bolder. One morning, I overheard Stephanie telling Emma, "Grandma's generation just has a different idea of personal hygiene." After I had used some of my favorite lavender lotion. Another time, she commented loudly on a phone call that older people really struggle with technology when I had trouble connecting to the home's new Wi-Fi password, which had been changed without telling me. Michael was increasingly absent from these conflicts. His company had taken on a major project, meaning longer hours and weekend work. When he was home, he seemed determined to avoid any tension, quickly changing the subject if I tried to discuss the growing hostility. "Michael, could we talk about how things are going with this living arrangement?" I asked one rare evening when we found ourselves alone in the kitchen. "Mom, please, I'm exhausted. Can we just have a nice night without drama?" He rubbed his eyes. "Stephanie says you're being oversensitive. She's trying really hard to make this work." The next day, I found a typed list taped to my bedroom door labeled Household Responsibilities. It outlined an extensive set of chores Stephanie expected me to complete daily, including cleaning both bathrooms, vacuuming all carpeted areas, dusting every surface, and maintaining the garden. The list concluded with a note. "Since you're home all day while we're working and paying bills, we think this is a fair contribution to the household." I stared at the list, fighting back tears. Despite my continued mortgage payments and regular grocery contributions, I was being treated like an unwelcome tenant. But I complied meticulously, completing each task, hoping that maybe this would finally satisfy Stephanie. My old friend Barbara visited one afternoon while everyone was out. She watched me scrubbing the kitchen floor with concern in her eyes. "Linda, this doesn't seem right. You're not their housekeeper." I straightened up, wincing at the pain in my back. "It's a fair trade for living here." I repeated the words I'd been telling myself. Barbara took the sponge from my hand. "Is it? You're paying the mortgage and playing maid. Have you thought about finding your own place?" I had, of course, but the housing market had skyrocketed since John and I bought our home 30 years ago. My fixed income wouldn't stretch far enough for rent in any decent neighborhood, and the thought of leaving my grandchildren broke my heart. "I can't abandon the kids," I told Barbara, "and Michael needs me even if he doesn't realize it." "But what about what you need, Linda? You look exhausted. You've lost weight. Are you even sleeping?" The truth was, I wasn't. I lay awake most nights, torn between loyalty to my son and my dwindling self-respect. My doctor had noted my elevated blood pressure at my last visit and suggested stress might be a factor. The situation reached a new low on Michael's birthday. I had spent the day preparing his childhood favorite meal, Swedish meatballs, with all the trimmings, a homemade chocolate cake cooling on the counter. When they all came home, Stephanie walked in carrying bags of takeout Thai food. "Oh," she said, feigning surprise at seeing the kitchen table set with our old family china. "Didn't Michael tell you we decided to get takeout for his birthday? The kids have been craving pad Thai all week." Michael looked between the cooling meatballs and his wife, conflict evident on his face. But he said nothing as Stephanie began unloading the containers onto the kitchen island, effectively dismissing my entire day's work. I went to bed early that night, the untouched cake sitting in the refrigerator, my heart heavier than it had been since John's funeral. The breaking point came during the last weekend of August when Stephanie's family visited. Her parents, 2 sisters with their husbands, and several nieces and nephews, descended on the house for what was supposed to be a joyful family gathering. I spent days helping prepare the guest rooms and cooking extra food for the freezer to make the visit easier. During introductions in the backyard, Stephanie gestured toward me with a casual wave. And this is Michael's mother, Linda. She's staying with us temporarily while figuring out her next steps. Temporarily. We had never discussed my situation as temporary. The statement stung, but I smiled politely and continued serving the lemonade I had prepared. Later that evening, while retrieving more napkins from the kitchen, I overheard Stephanie talking to her younger sister near the pantry. They didn't notice me just around the corner. It's becoming a financial burden having her here, Stephanie was saying. She barely contributes anything. I froze, napkins clutched in my hand. Barely contributes. I had been making the $2,000 mortgage payment every month without fail, not to mention buying groceries, and now serving as their unpaid housekeeper. Can't you just ask her to leave? Her sister asked. Michael feels guilty since his dad died, but I'm working on it. She can't stay forever. I slipped away quietly, my hands shaking. The conversation replayed in my mind throughout dinner, where I sat at the far end of the extended table, separated from Michael and the children by Stephanie's family members. The next afternoon, Stephanie's mother cornered me while I was folding laundry. Stephanie mentioned you might be looking at senior communities soon. Such a sensible decision at your age. My friend Dolores loves her retirement village. I stared at her speechless. This was the first I'd heard about any senior community. That evening, while everyone was playing board games in the living room, I used Michael's office computer to check my email. A notification for a shared document caught my eye. When I clicked on it, my blood ran cold. It was a spreadsheet Stephanie had created titled Senior Living Options for Linda. It contained detailed research on various facilities, all at least 2 hours away from their home, with notes about payment plans and move-in dates circled for the coming month. When the house finally quieted that night, I confronted Stephanie in the kitchen where she was loading the dishwasher. I saw the spreadsheet, I said quietly, about senior living facilities. She didn't even have the decency to look embarrassed. You weren't supposed to see that yet. We were going to discuss it with you after my family left. Does Michael know about this? Of course he does. Linda, be realistic. This arrangement was never meant to be permanent. You need your own space, and frankly, we need ours back. I've been contributing to this household. I pay the mortgage every month. Stephanie's laugh was short and cold. The mortgage payments. That's the least you could do, considering we took you in. Do you have any idea what assisted living costs? We're saving you thousands. Taking me in, this is my son's home. No, this is our home. Michael and I have built this life, and while we were happy to help during your grief, it's time for you to stand on your own feet. Michael walked in a confused expression on his face. What's going on? I could hear you from upstairs. Your wife has been researching nursing homes for me, I said, my voice breaking. Apparently, I'm being evicted. Not nursing homes, Michael. Independent senior living, Stephanie corrected smoothly. And we discussed this. Your mother needs a community of her own age, her own space. I looked at my son, waiting for him to defend me, to express shock at his wife's actions. Instead, he sighed heavily and leaned against the counter. Mom, maybe we do need to think about other arrangements, he said softly. It's getting complicated, having everyone under one roof. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own son was siding with her. After everything John and I had done for him, after all the mortgage payments, after all the love and support. "I see," was all I managed to say before leaving the kitchen. I spent that night sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the photos of John on my nightstand, tears silently streaming down my face. How had it come to this? When had I become disposable to my own child? The next morning, I found a newspaper on the kitchen table with rental listings circled in red marker. It had been deliberately left for me to find. The message couldn't have been clearer. I was no longer welcome in my son's home. That night, I barely slept. As I watched the digital clock tick from hour to hour, something shifted inside me. By the time dawn broke, streaming pale light through the curtains, I knew what I needed to do. I had spent months shrinking myself, accepting disrespect, and ignoring my own needs to keep the peace. John would have been furious if he could see how I was being treated. More importantly, he would have been disappointed in how I was allowing it to happen. "Enough," I whispered to myself as I got dressed. "Enough now." While the house was still quiet, I called my financial advisor, Frank, who had worked with John and me for decades. "Linda, it's been too long," he greeted me warmly. "How are you holding up?" "Not great, Frank. I need to know my options. I'm living with my son, but I need to move out. Immediately." I explained the situation, including the mortgage arrangement. "Let me pull up your files," he said. After a few moments of keyboard clicking, he made a surprised sound. "Linda, are you aware that you're not just a co-signer on that mortgage? You're actually the primary borrower. Your name is first on the loan." "What does that mean exactly?" "It means legally you have an ownership interest in that house. The bank considers you responsible for the loan, not Michael. That's why they approved it in the first place with your credit score." The revelation stunned me. So the house is partly mine. From a lending perspective, it's more yours than theirs. "Have you been making the payments?" "Every month since they bought it." Frank was silent for a moment. "Linda, I'm not a lawyer, but you need to be very careful here. Don't sign anything or agree to anything without proper legal advice. You have more options than you realize." After hanging up, I felt a strange sense of calm. I spent the morning gathering my important documents and researching short-term housing options. I found a decent extended-stay hotel nearby, with weekly rates I could afford for at least a couple of months. That would give me time to figure out a more permanent solution. I called Barbara next. "I'm leaving Michael's house today," I told her without preamble. "Thank God," she responded. "Do you need help? Where will you go?" "A hotel for now. And yes, I could use some help moving my things this afternoon while everyone's out. I'll be there at 2. And Linda, I'm proud of you." Those words nearly brought me to tears again. But this time, they would have been tears of relief. While Michael was at work and Stephanie had taken the children to their swimming lessons, I packed methodically. I took only what was truly mine, leaving behind anything that could be disputed. I wrote heartfelt letters to Aiden and Emma, telling them how much I loved them, and that Grandma wasn't disappearing from their lives, no matter what happened. I included my new email address and promised to send them messages every day. By the time Barbara arrived with her SUV, I had reduced my life to 3 suitcases and a few boxes. As we loaded them, I looked back at the house, where I had been so unhappy these past months. "One last thing," I said, pulling out my phone. I made a call to the mortgage company, and after verifying my identity, arranged to cancel the automatic payment scheduled for the 1st of next month. The account holder would like to temporarily suspend payments. I told the representative, using the formal language of banking to describe myself. I'll call back with further instructions. After hanging up, I booked my hotel room online, completing the reservation just as Barbara closed the trunk. "Ready?" she asked gently. For the first time in months, I genuinely smiled. "Ready." I timed my return carefully, arriving just after Michael would be home from work, but before the children's bedtime. Barbara insisted on coming with me for moral support and as a witness, she said grimly. The surprise on Michael and Stephanie's faces when we walked in, carrying only my purse and a small overnight bag, was almost worth the anxiety churning in my stomach. "Mom, where have you been?" "We were worried when we couldn't find you," Michael said, though the concern in his voice sounded more perfunctory than genuine. "I've moved out," I said simply. "I've come to let you know and to say goodbye to the children." Stephanie's relief was instantly visible, though she tried to mask it with a furrowed brow. "Moved out, just like that, where to?" "That's not your concern anymore," Barbara interjected coolly. "I wanted to let you know that I've also canceled next month's mortgage payment." I continued, my voice steadier than I expected. "Since I won't be living here, I won't be contributing financially either." The silence that followed was absolute. Stephanie's face drained of color. Michael's mouth opened and closed without sound. "What do you mean, canceled the mortgage payment?" he finally managed. "Exactly that. I called the bank and stopped the automatic payment that was scheduled." "You can't do that," Stephanie sputtered. "That's our house payment." "Actually," I said, pulling out the documents Frank had emailed me, "I am the primary borrower on the mortgage. My name is first. My credit secured the loan. And I've made every payment since you moved in." Michael took the papers with trembling hands. "Mom, this isn't right. We had an understanding. Did we? Because I understood I was family, not a convenience to be discarded when I became inconvenient. I understood that the home I helped pay for would be a place where I was respected, not treated like an unwelcome guest." "You're being dramatic," Stephanie cut in. "We were just discussing options for your future. Senior communities have activities, friends your own age." "Stop it!" Michael suddenly snapped at his wife. "Just stop." He looked at the mortgage document more carefully, realization dawning on his face. "Mom has been paying our mortgage for 5 years. Did you know that?" Stephanie's face flushed. "We let her live here for months. We fed her, fed me." I laughed, the sound surprising even me. "I bought groceries. I cooked meals. I cleaned this entire house according to your specifications. I paid $2,000 every month toward a home where you made me feel unwelcome and unwanted." At that moment, Aiden and Emma came running down the stairs, their faces lighting up when they saw me. "Grandma, where were you? See you. We missed you at dinner." Emma threw her arms around my waist. I hugged her tightly, fighting back tears. "Grandma had to go take care of some grown-up business, sweetheart. And actually, I'm going to be staying somewhere else for a while." "But why?" Aiden asked, his 8-year-old face serious. "Don't you like living with us anymore?" Before I could answer, Stephanie jumped in. "Grandma wants her own space, kids. Like when you want privacy in your rooms." "That's not true," I said firmly. "I love being with you both. But sometimes, adults have disagreements about what's best. And right now, Grandma needs to live in her own place." I knelt down to their level. "But I promise I will still see you. I've written you both special letters explaining everything. And I've set up an email address where you can write to me anytime." I handed them each their envelopes, which they clutched tightly. "Can we visit you?" Emma asked. "Of course you can, as soon as I'm settled." Michael had been reviewing the mortgage documents while I spoke with the children. When he looked up, something had changed in his expression. "Kids, go upstairs and read Grandma's letters. We need to talk to her privately." After they reluctantly trudged upstairs, Michael turned to me. "Mom, we can work this out. You don't have to leave." "Yes, I do," I replied. "I deserve better than what's happened here." "The mortgage payment," Stephanie began anxiously. "We can't afford it without your contribution." "That's not my problem anymore," I said. "You made it clear I don't contribute enough to stay here, so I won't contribute at all." "What do you want?" Michael asked quietly. "Just tell us what you want." "Respect, appreciation, to be treated like family instead of an inconvenience. But I can't force those things, and I won't beg for them either." I turned to leave, but Michael caught my arm. "Please, Mom. I'm sorry. I didn't see what was happening." Looking into my son's eyes, I saw a glimpse of the boy I had raised, the one who once adored me unconditionally. But I also saw the man who had allowed his wife to systematically push me out of their lives. "I raised you better than this, Michael," I said softly. "When you remember that, you know where to find me." With that, I walked out, Barbara close behind me. As we drove away, I felt both heartbroken and strangely empowered. For the first time since John died, I had stood up for myself. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least now I was the one choosing my path. The first week in the extended stay hotel was a strange mixture of grief and liberation. I cried myself to sleep those initial nights, mourning not just the loss of daily contact with my grandchildren, but also the relationship I thought I had with my son. Each morning, though, I woke with a clearer sense of purpose and a growing appreciation for my newfound independence. No one was monitoring my movements. No one was criticizing my cooking or my cleaning. No one was making me feel unwelcome in my own space. Barbara visited, often bringing home-cooked meals and endless encouragement. "You look better already," she remarked one afternoon about 10 days after my departure. "There's color in your cheeks again." With her help, I found a small but sunny one-bedroom apartment in a secure building about 20 minutes from Michael's house. The rent was higher than I'd hoped, but without the mortgage payment, I could manage it for at least a year while figuring out a long-term plan. "It's perfect," I told her as we toured the bright living room with its bay window. "It's just enough space for me, and look at all this natural light." Moving in was bittersweet. My furniture from storage barely filled half the rooms, making the space echo with emptiness that reminded me of all I had lost. Yet arranging my belongings exactly as I wanted them brought unexpected joy. I hung John's photographs prominently in the living room where they belonged. The emails from Aiden and Emma started immediately. Despite Stephanie's obvious displeasure, they wrote to me daily, sending digital drawing stories about school and endless questions about when they could visit. I responded faithfully every evening, maintaining that precious connection, despite everything else. 2 weeks after my departure, my phone rang with Michael's number. My heart raced as I answered. "Mom," his voice sounded strained. "We need to talk about the mortgage." "I'm listening," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "We can't make the payment on our own. The bank called yesterday about the missed payment." "I'm aware. They called me, too, as the primary borrower." There was a pause. "What are you going to do?" "What do you want me to do, Michael?" Another long silence. "Can we meet somewhere, just us, please?" We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. When I arrived, Michael was already there, looking haggard and sleep-deprived. For a moment, maternal instinct almost overwhelmed my resolve. I wanted to smooth his hair and tell him everything would be all right, just as I had when he was small. Instead, I sat across from him and waited. "I didn't know you were making the full mortgage payment," he began. "I thought you were just contributing part of it." "Did you ever ask?" He shook his head. "I assumed Stephanie was handling it. She manages our finances." "She knew," I said quietly. "She's made comments about it." Michael stared into his coffee. "I've learned a lot of things these past 2 weeks. About how you were treated. About the chore list. About what Stephanie said to you." He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I failed you." His apology loosened something tight in my chest. "Why didn't you see it happening?" "I don't know. Work stress. Not wanting to see problems in my marriage. Taking the path of least resistance." He ran a hand through his hair. "None of it excuses what happened." "No," I agreed. "It doesn't. The kids miss you terribly. They keep asking when you're coming home. This isn't about the children, Michael. They're welcome in my life always." "I know." He hesitated. "Stephanie and I have been talking. A lot. I confronted her about everything. She admitted she wanted you gone from the beginning." This wasn't surprising, but hearing it confirmed still hurt. And I told her it was unacceptable. That you're my mother, and after everything you and Dad did for us, you deserved better. He reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. "I suggested family therapy. For all of us. Me, Stephanie, you, if you're willing." I considered his words carefully. "What about the mortgage?" "I've applied for refinancing to get it in just our names. It will take time and the interest rate will be higher, but it's the right thing to do. You shouldn't be paying for our house if we made you feel unwelcome in it." His admission and actions showed a maturity I hadn't seen in my son for years. It didn't erase the hurt, but it offered a path forward. "I'll think about the therapy," I said finally. "But I'm not moving back, Michael. I have my own place now." He nodded. "I understand. Can the kids visit you there? Maybe I could bring them this weekend." "I'd like that," I said, feeling the first genuine smile in weeks spread across my face. As autumn settled over the city, I established a new routine. I volunteered 3 mornings a week at a local elementary school, helping children with reading difficulties. The work connected me to my teaching roots and filled my days with purpose. I joined a widows' support group where I found understanding from others who had lost their spouses. And gradually, I built a social circle independent of my identity as Michael's mother or John's wife. Every Saturday, Michael brought the children to visit. Sometimes they stayed overnight, sleeping on the pull-out sofa I had specifically purchased for them. We baked cookies, visited parks, and created new traditions in my small apartment. Stephanie never came along, which was a relief to us both. I maintained firm boundaries with Michael. Our relationship was healing, but slowly. Trust once broken requires time and consistent effort to rebuild. The family therapy sessions began awkwardly, but improved with time. Stephanie's resistance gradually gave way to reluctant insights about her insecurity and fear of being displaced in her own family. I came to understand her perspective better, even if I couldn't fully forgive her actions yet. The breakthrough came unexpectedly 3 months after I had moved out. I was preparing dinner in my apartment when there was a knocking at the door. I opened it to find Michael standing there, alone, without the children. "Can I come in?" he asked hesitantly. I welcomed him inside, noticing he seemed nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot, like he used to do as a teenager, when he had something difficult to say. "I wanted to tell you in person," he began after declining coffee. "The refinancing went through. The house is completely in our names now. You're released from the mortgage." "That's good news," I said, genuinely pleased for him. "There's more." He took a deep breath. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about how I let you down when you needed me most. Dad would have been so disappointed in me. Your father loved you, Michael. He would have wanted us to find a way forward. I know. That's why I'm here. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is for you. From me, not from Stephanie. It's my choice and my responsibility. Inside the envelope was a check for a substantial amount, along with a handwritten note for every mortgage payment you made. With all my love and deepest apologies, your son, Michael. I stared at the check tears blurring my vision. It wasn't about the money, but about the recognition of my contributions and sacrifices. I can't take this, Michael. Please, Mom. It's not repayment. Nothing could repay what you and Dad did for us. It's acknowledgement, and it's me trying to give you options for your future. In that moment, looking at my son's earnest face, I saw that he had learned perhaps the most important lesson of all, that family means honoring and respecting each other, especially when it's difficult. That love without respect is hollow. That amends must be concrete, not just verbal. I accepted the check, and his embrace, feeling a piece of my broken heart begin to heal. Today, nearly a year after leaving Michael's house, I've found a balance that works for all of us. I've purchased a small condo closer to Michael's neighborhood, making it easier for the children to visit. Stephanie and I maintain a cordial relationship, not close, but respectful. Michael and I have rebuilt much of what was damaged, though some scars remain. Most importantly, I've rediscovered myself beyond my roles as mother, grandmother, and widow. I'm Linda, 64 years old now, still learning and growing, still capable of standing up for myself when necessary, and extending forgiveness when earned. The hardest lesson was realizing that sometimes the people who should love us the most can hurt us the deepest. The most valuable lesson was discovering that I am stronger than I ever imagined. If you're facing disrespect from family members, remember that you always have choices, even when it seems like you don't. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to establish boundaries and require the respect you deserve. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who took you for granted? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult times. And remember, it's never too late to start valuing yourself enough to walk away from mistreatment, even from those you love most. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to honor yourself in all your relationships.